On Ticker, this is Import Export with Lawrence Christophels.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us again on Import Export here on Ticker TV. I'm your host, Lawrence Christophels. There's so much going on with coronavirus, supply chain, global trade, stocks. It's a frantic time in global business and global trade. We've got an amazing lineup of guests for you today. But to kick it all off, I'm joined by Darren Whittaker, who's the Managing Director of Network Global Solutions. So Darren, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Darren, the reason why I really thought it was important to get you on the show, first and foremost, I know that you've been doing a lot of product sourcing, you're a trade expert in many ways, but I wanted to ask you about how this has impacted typical product locations and sourcing countries and locations. So what have you found? Typically everything, as we know, predominantly comes from China. What's your experience of how things have evolved over the last month and a bit?
Well, it's been very interesting times. As with a lot of businesses, heavily weighted on China. Look, we've been looking at other options, but look, China are doing a very good job of containing it, but a lot of factories aren't at full capacity yet. So there are a lot of alternatives out there, and we've been looking at those alternatives and implementing some changes for customers. So it's much less of an issue for them. We've already directed some orders to India. We're also looking at Eastern Europe and other parts of Asia. But yeah, there certainly are alternatives out there. It very much depends on your product mix. We do have some orders that were placed prior to the Chinese New Year, and they're still in production. The delays at the moment are only in the space of around 2 to 3 weeks, but I understand other industries are much greater, depending on the product type, how many tier 2, tier 3 factories are involved, and also the location of the workers, and whether they need to be quarantined, what areas they're coming from, how far from the factory they live, and so on. Right,
I understand. I suppose I probably should have asked you to introduce NGS first and foremost. I've jumped the gun because I know what you do, but I should have started with you explaining to the viewers and the audience what NGS is all about and why it's so important at the moment, especially.
Effectively, we're a global sourcing company. We, in most cases, handle end-to-end. So for an Australian customer, for example, they may come to us with a product or a specification. We can get involved in the design and the development of the product, all the way to finding the right factory, doing the quality control, handling all the import-export due diligence, supplying to them Australian dollars plus GST delivered to their door, and they've got a local business that has responsibility for that process, and if anything goes wrong, they're not speaking to a faceless factory on the other side of the world. This is becoming more and more important. The process of international trade requires a lot more professional services than it's similar to, say, needing an accountant or a lawyer. There's so many pitfalls out there these days that it's imperative for the security of your business to make sure that everything's done well. We could list examples of pitfalls. Forever, a fantastic example is there's a big push from factories overseas to try to supply a CFR or CIF. Which means they basically book the vessel that the container is going to sit on. If they do that, you have no choice which customs broker does your clearance, so then you can't control your pricing. And worst case scenario, there's been situations where businesses are basically been blackmailed. The customs broker knows the value of the product, and so they build a cost in and basically say, this is our fee, and if you don't pay it, you won't get it off the wharf. Now, if you were to use, say, FOB, which is very common for us, either FOB or Ex Works, you have a lot more control on your supply chain. Also, I very much question the validity of the insurance in CIF when, if something were to happen, and as your previous guests have explained, things do happen. It's not super common, but it does, and one shipment for, say, a small business, a container load, it could be fatal. So these are the little things that are so important that we're helping our customers with. Another example would be our ability. We were able to just because we'd done prior due diligence for the customer, which we do for in most situations for ongoing business. A customer placed an order. They had a relatively reasonable lead time, but it was right when the coronavirus outbreak.
Right. Yep.
And we were able to give them a full report on an alternative in India, and they subsequently placed the order, and the order's gone to India instead of China in that example.
Yep.
Look, when the dust settles, it may go back to India, but we're confident in our due diligence that the quality control is going to be fantastic. And,
Well, I think that, this is why it was so important to get you on the show, because companies are scratching their head thinking, well, okay, I've had this supplier in China for X amount of years. I don't know where to start again now if I need to look at alternative sourcing methodologies or sourcing suppliers, countries. And I love the way that NGS, from a freight forwarding point of view and logistics, we look at purchase order management. But what you really do is supplier management. It's much more than just managing the purchase order. You look at the QC, you look at the communication, you take all that on yourself. So that it's a huge game changer in many ways, to actually take on a local person who you can liaise with. I can pick up the phone and say, Darren, what's going on with my order? That's a major plus. So I think, apart from, you mentioned India, what other countries are sort of emerging out of this crisis with China?
Look, it very much depends on your product mix.
Sure.
We're looking at products at the moment, timber-based products out of Eastern Europe, with origins of Russia, Bulgaria, Latvia, Estonia.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And I haven't had direct experience with myself, but I understand automotive parts from Russia as well is becoming quite popular.
Okay.
So it's very much depends on your product mix.
Yeah. The other thing that first and foremost I want to congratulate you on, but also I want you to explain this to the viewers why it's so important and such a great credit to you and your team. Trusted Trader. Now, as a sourcing company, to get a Trusted Trader accreditation it's a pretty impressive feat. So, explain to us, one, why you did it, and now what it means to your clients.
Yeah, thank you. It was very much a milestone for Network Global Solutions. Basically, there are a lot of benefits in relation to, Australian Border Force implement the Australian Trusted Trader, and they accredit businesses. I think it's been around for a couple of years now. The heavy majority of accredited businesses are freight forwarders. They obviously need it. The benefits are far and wide. Effectively, we get top of the pile processing for any container coming through. So if a container does need to be inspected, for example, you're top of the pile. You might have perishable goods that are sitting there waiting for Australian Border Force. Yeah. There's also duty deferment, GST deferment, so for cash flow benefits. But effectively, the greatest benefit for us is the ability to be able to move product with much less restriction for our customers, and also the assurance that Australian Trusted Trader only accredit best practice businesses. And we've had two Australian Border Force staff members for over half a day in our office with their badges and their boots and their suits, and going through every process, and they need to make sure that the supply chain is secure from start to finish. It's very difficult for a small independent importer that's doing small volume to go through that process. There's quite a bit of business interruption. So we've done that process now, and it adds a lot of benefit and reassurance to our customers.
I think it also adds a lot of weight to the suppliers you negotiate with too, because if you're saying, look, I'm interested in what you can provide us from a sourcing perspective as a supplier, we are a Trusted Trader accredited Australian business. They take you a lot more seriously. They know that you're really good at what you're doing, so they're going to give you a better price, sharper service, because they know that basically you know your stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And look, the reassurance for our customers, particularly in the early days, we've been in business now for over 11 years. In the early days, we're effectively in nearly all of our situations charge our customers under the same trading terms that we pay our suppliers. A lot of the time the product's customised and it's of no value to anyone else except our customers, so it's an obvious business model to go down that path. Now if a business is to say give us a $500,000 deposit, and it's a medium-sized business, they want to know that we're not going to shoot off and say live in Bali off it for the next
I was
10
going to
years.
say Bahamas, but Bali's good too.
Even better.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it gives that reassurance. You know, we've been thoroughly audited and accredited because of our business practices.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think the other reason why, again, I really wanted you on the show at this particular time, and you are one of the trusted partners of ATLC, so say that off the bat as well. We're proud to have you as part of our community as well. But what I've really noticed over the last month and a bit around existing, let's say, established importers, that they really now value what you're offering even above, say, a startup importer or someone who's just dabbling in international trade. You'd say, look, yeah, Darren, you take care of all that stuff, that's fine. But now even more experienced importers and people who are more experienced in international trade are thinking, well, we need to go to that expertise to say, well, yeah, let's shop around, see where the other suppliers can be, what other markets we can source from, and they've really seen the extra value of what you can do there with NGS.
Look, it's a process to go through, and one of the pain points is for our customers is they're really only interested in assessing it when they're assessing their supply chain. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, everyone's doing that. Yeah. So it's very busy times for us. Yeah. And for the start-out businesses, the startups, and existing businesses, if you're looking at expanding your product range, you might not have expertise or a skill set in a particular product range. Yeah. Now, if you're looking at developing a new product or you're looking at starting a new business with a product, ideally you're looking around 4 trips, say to China, to trade fairs or you may see some, say, on Alibaba.com, and you need to go and you need to see them, and then you need to engage a few of them for samples, and then the most important visit is if that container leaves the country of origin. China, for example, won't allow you to ship the container back if there's something wrong with it. Once they put that steel on that container and send it to the wharf,
you're stuck with it.
You're stuck with it.
Look, Darren, there's so much more I want to talk to you about. I want to get you back on the show in a couple of weeks or a month or so, just after all this stuff settles as well, because I want to talk about some case studies before and after NGS, if you like. But I've got to wrap up and go to the break. But thanks so much for joining us. Just quickly wrapping up, what's the best way for the viewers to get in touch with you?
By ngsdirect.com.
Okay, fantastic. So Darren, thanks so much for joining me again this morning, and we'll definitely get you back on the show very soon and get you to talk about some before and after case studies. So thanks, mate, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great.